Victor Chiazo is the head of research at FSL Securities. He's joining us live from our studios at the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Now, really at the trading floor. You know the location? The studios just overlook the trading floor, so we want to see how Victor looks like live on the floor. That was where almost 1 billion shares of Forte oil were traded yesterday. The share price moved up 10% on the day. Billionaire businessman Femi Otedela finally exits the company that he bought about 21 years ago as African Petroleum. Victor, this is a big move on the market. What's your reading of it as a research analyst? Let's start from there.
Yeah, Bosun, thanks for having me here. I think that was a bold move by Otedela. We all know this was going to happen anytime soon. It's complete divestment from Forte oil and moving into the energy sector. For him, I'm sure he must have looked at his long-time view of the markets, the downstream sector, and probably he might not be comfortable with what his analysts around him might be telling him. So I'm thinking he might be looking at the longer-term gains and moving into the energy sector, power sector, and thinking that might be the next big thing for him. But for investors in Forte oil, I think they need to keep their eyes with that company, because with Prudent coming in, we expect a bit of a turnaround in management. We might see a new CEO, we may see a new CFO, depending on how the new management is looking at things. So I think it's something that investors should be looking at pretty closely.
Yes, I'm sure you're watching this very closely as well. This exit, like you said, will be the new managing director, the new chairman. What else would you be looking at for as a research analyst, looking at the numbers moving forward and looking at the share price of this company over time?
Yeah, for Forte oil, I think when Otedela got into Forte oil and his new management, actually did quite a good move. Was actually good. This was a company that hadn't paid dividend over the years, but immediately he came in with his new team, his managing director. They came around and they turned things around, and this company became a company that started paying dividends over the time. If you recall, Forte oil was trading at as low as almost below 20 naira. I think in 2013 or 2014, thereabout. And this company moved as high as 300 naira before it started dipping with its results in terms of performance. So I think with current price, I think it's something that people should be looking at, especially for the long term. But in terms of where I think the company is going to be, I think in terms of the downstream sector, that sector, I think you might want to be careful, especially once the Dangote refinery comes on board. Activities in that sector, the players may change, and I think a lot of dynamics around them may change. So you might need to keep an eye on that aspect, especially when the Dangote refinery comes on board.
Do you think I should keep an eye? Femi Otedela, according to competent sources, says he's putting about $1 billion. He's not just selling out of Forte oil, keep the money abroad and just junkets all over the world. I'm sure he'll be thinking of how to put the money. And sources say he'll be putting about $1 billion into Geregu power plant, which is already a PLC. Do you think Femi Otedela perhaps is thinking of getting ahead of the rest of the crowd and perhaps get Geregu power plant listed on the trading floor where you are? Maybe.
Yeah, definitely. It's an option, I'm sure, because this is a man that is highly informed and is an intelligent man. He understands what the capital market has to offer to any business, to any managing director in terms of raising capital for long-term projects. So I think it's something he might be looking at over the long term, and I think he has looked at it. If you recall, Alhaji Aliko Dangote, in one of his meetings, mentioned that for Nigeria to grow, power needs to be resolved. And we had quite a number of top executives re-echoing the same thing, that power issue needs to be resolved. We can't, as the giant of Africa, we can't be running around with 4,000 megawatts. I think it's quite sad that a country like Nigeria is still running around with 4,000 megawatts of energy over the last almost 10 years, over a decade. So I think it's a good step in the right direction for him, and I think he wants to position himself ahead so that at least once the boom comes and we get things right, I'm sure he's going to be at the forefront of the entire process.
Okay, you just talk about cement a little bit. Lafarge reporting to the market the repayment of that Series 2 bonds, 26.4 billion, because Lafarge says he sold the South Africa business unit and all of that. Well, what's your take on that? And the first quarter numbers, I'm sure it's still early days, the numbers I just hear, all your analysts will be pouring over this and giving us your opinion about that. Give us a sense of that as you get this morning, Victor.
Yeah, Bosun, Lafarge, I think I'm sure they must have looked at their performance over the years and had a strategy session around how to turn things around. And I think this current news in the market is quite a good development for shareholders, because if you look over time, after the acquisition of Unisem and the foreign currency borrowing, Lafarge has actually been struggling to actually pay back in terms of paying back his interest and also paying down the entire loan he borrowed from his parent company, Lafarge Holcim. So with his current news in the market that he's in agreement with the parent company to sell off his South African holding and use for about $317 million and use that to actually offset his $293 million debt that it holds its parent company. I think that will actually ease the balance sheet for the company going forward. Because if you look at performance over the years, especially for full year 2017, the company has actually struggled in terms of rising costs. Its cost to revenue for 2018 stood about 77%, while its finance cost to its gross profit was about 65% for full year 2018. For Q1, which came out recently, about a couple of hours ago, the cost to revenue still was as high as 76%, which is not really going to be good for any business if you compare to the likes of Dangote Cement, which has a cost margin of below 50%. And its finance cost as well to its gross profit for Q1 came at 52%. It shows you that the finance cost has continued to weigh down the profits of this company. And with this agreement, which is expected to be wrapped up in the Q3 2019, I think from Q3, Q4, the company's performance may actually start to get better, because once you begin to take out the finance cost from its operating its balance sheet, I think profits may begin to rise. For full year 2018, total finance cost for the company was about 45 billion, while for Q1 currently is about 9 billion. That's a lot of money. If you look at it, despite posting a profit about 3 billion for Q1, if you look at those numbers, you find out that there was a tax rate of about 3 billion naira for Q1. The company needs to start posting profits, PBTs, and be able to reward shareholders with increased dividend. And I think this is the right step in the right direction. Lafarge South Africa has not really contributed so much to Lafarge Africa's top and bottom line. So I think selling it at that stake and clearing up the balance sheet will actually position Lafarge to return good profits in the long term.
Okay, we're going to get a bit. Lafarge says this sale of the South African unit, about $317 million, as I said, will be concluded in the third quarter. If that comes in, the company says it will help it to deleverage its total debt of $293 million. So you think this is going to be a blue ocean, as it were, a new beginning, technically speaking, with all the rights issue and everything else that Lafarge has done, and now be able to move forward. And you think this is something investors, either in and out, should be taking very careful note of?
Yeah, I think investors should take significant note of this, because currently I expect the price in the market should be on bid. I expect Lafarge Africa in the trading engine, the stock exchange where I am currently, should actually be on bid. Investors should be rushing to get a hold of this share, because with its current price, I think it's pretty much undervalued. And like I said earlier, 45 billion in 2018 for finance costs. I think if you take that even down to probably 5 billion once this debt is cleared, and you see 40 billion coming back into its operations, and you can see it in your income statement and report in your profits before tax, I think that's going to be significant for any company. And I think investors should quickly cash in on this advantage, especially given the low price Lafarge is currently trading at, because the company has continued to suffer from bad quarter-on-quarter results. And I think now is the time for investors to to quickly cash in. You recall that Lafarge has done 2 rights issue, and despite the 2 rights issue, it hasn't been able to clear off its debt profile. I think this might actually be the final nail on the head, which will actually take away its huge debt profile that's continued to weigh down the company. So I think investors should quickly cash in on this opportunity and smile in the long term.
Victor, thank you so much. But again, this morning, President Buhari made some major announcements of a new group managing director for NNPC, including 7 other top officials, the chief operating officer, the new chief financial officer for the NNPC. I know this is breaking news, as it were. Perhaps Mr. President is thinking of breaking down this NNPC and bringing part of it to the stock market there for listing. Maybe these are early moves there. I don't know the mind of Mr. President. I'm just thinking perhaps he should think. I'm just giving you an idea, trying to put something in there for him. Maybe he's thinking in that direction. That would be a big move. Victor, let's talk about this some other day. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Let's take a break, everyone. Thank you, Victor, from FSL Securities. We're right back in 2.